Hello and welcome to the next Nix Hour. Today we are very short on people here other than my coworker here. There's no one, even though we did try to find a new time. So I hope more people will join again in the future. But for today, because we don't have any questions here, and there's also not a lot of questions in the Nix Hour repository here, I'm just going to have a short one, just half an hour. And hopefully with more people and more questions, especially in the meeting, we can have longer ones again. And so, well, one of the questions here is, two new ones got written. One of them is about best practices for multi-host system configurations. For example, how to connect multiple machines via DNS lookups and things like that. I do not have a lot I can talk about there. That, as far as I know, Nixos doesn't really provide anything like that by default. The other question here I could talk about a bit is the deployments of Nixos machines. Underneath also how they really work, we can look at nixos-rebuild, what it really does, and also activationScripts. We can look at the script to switch between systems and things like that. So for that, I think let's start with just taking a look at nixos-rebuild. So nixos-rebuild is just a bash script. And so you can actually, what I often do is like this, just open which nixos-rebuild, which then expands to the path of nixos-rebuild itself, which is here. And then it, opens it, which nixos-rebuild. So here we can see it's just a bash script. And it's somewhat long, about 600 lines. It does a lot of things to pipe through what needs to happen. It also handles flakes and non-flake configurations. But the main bits, so let's see, if we just have a nixos, actually let's go to a nix instantiate, I believe. Yeah, so, well, does nix instantiate, it wraps that with some stuff. We have a nix build. And I think this is really the main kind of point where it looks up your configuration. So underneath, it really just builds this, well, in the non-flake way, it's an impure path here. It's the one that points to the nixos subdirectory in the nixpkgs Nix path. And it builds the system attribute. And so this, you might have also seen that in past Nix hours. I often do something like this, where I'm in nixpkgs, and then I debug some nixos system with a configuration.nix. And then configuration contains something, doesn't really matter. But I often do something like this, a nix build, nixos, arc configuration, and then system. And so this is kind of what nixos-rebuild also does. And well, in this case, we pass explicitly the configuration here. If we do not do that, it uses the one from a Nix path environment, well, from the Nix path environment variable. We can look at this we can just do echo Nix path. So Nix path contains, is essentially a key value store, a very simple one. It contains for each value you can look up, so nixpkgs, it contains a path. In this case, it points to a channel. That's kind of weird. I thought, yeah, that is really weird. I'm pretty sure I turned that off for my system. So that must have broken recently with an update, but it points to a nixpkgs path. And so whenever you do in the Nix REPL, this special Nix syntax with the angle brackets, it's going to expand to that path from the Nix path. And this also works for subdirectories. So if you add a slash back here, it's going to expand to the subdirectory. And so actually here, it's a bit weird because I believe in here we have nix channel. Nix channel is the command that manages these paths here under per user root channels and also the other users. You can list, and there's nothing here because this is under the root user. So sudo nix channel list. And yeah, so Nix channel can manage these for you. In this case, we have that the nixos entry points to, well, this URL, but it's going to cache that URL locally and make it be persistent. Yeah, but so, I mean, we can also look into here. This channel here contains a nixos directory. This is some weird legacy things. I do not exactly know what this is about, but let's ignore this for now. Yeah. Right, and then so did I show Nix instantiate? Right, so this looks up by default if you don't pass configuration here in the argument. It looks it up in that Nix path as well. So yeah, actually the error here shows it clearly as well. Yes. Okay, I think it does. Yeah. But yeah, we can do this here. nixos-config. That's the key it looks up, and in this case, it does not exist. Does it actually not exist? It should exist.
I think it says that the file doesn't exist.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yes, I thought I also set a custom path here, but in any case. So Nix instantiate, it tries to use that Nix path variable by default, but in this case, the file doesn't exist. We can, however, also change the Nix path in the command line using the -big I or uppercase I. In this case, we can say nixos-config equals to /configuration.nix. And this is another way of doing the --org configuration./configuration.nix. Allows you just to customize the configuration on the command line. All right, but so the nixos-rebuild, what it really does, nix build, let's go down here. Oh yeah, it uses this as a nix as an argument. So let's also try this. So in this case, I used nixos as the argument here, and this points to the local directory here, to the working directory, and then nixos. But you can also use these Nix path expansions here. So we can also do this, except the angle brackets won't really work with a lot of shells, and so you need to wrap them with quotation marks. And so, I mean, the difference from this to previous one is just that this one uses one in the local directory, the Nix packages version. This one uses one in the Nix path. And while I'm at it, while we're doing this, I can also show that it's relatively easy to also use a channel. Just in the CLI, you can do this channel Nix packages or nixos unstable. So this will fetch the channel, unpack it, and import it. So this is a special kind of URL. Except it doesn't. I need to actually. Oh yeah, I guess that doesn't work here because I would have to get the nixos directory. And there is no syntax to directly make that work. So actually, never mind. I do, however, believe there is a nixos attribute in the top level. So let's take a look at this. Nixos equals, yeah, here. Nixos equals, and then we pass the configuration as a single argument. And then it also does this evaluation for us. Unfortunately, I don't think this will be very easy to pass in the CLI. At least in the old CLI, we can try the new one. So we could try this, nix eval, and then the local directory, or -- file, the local directory, and then the nixos attribute. So here this returns a lambda, but the new CLI exposes a very nice apply. And I believe we can maybe just pass the configuration that we want using this. It's called something which is not a function. Oh, actually, yeah, this is the other way around. We apply a function with this as an argument. So actually it would be like this. Yes, okay, that works. It's a bit roundabout, but yeah. Again, here we see how nix eval is strict in evaluation. So it has some, when you do nixos evaluation, it recurses. To make that work, I'd say let's not evaluate f directly, but let's do system. That's also what we did before. Although this is nix eval, let's just evaluate the out path. Oh, now we get some system is missing. Oh, yes. Apparently this is not the same, but we can do something like this. Let's do built-ins.attrib names. See what attributes are in here. We see. Okay, this actually exposes the. We can do. Yeah, let's look at this underneath. So what is actually system? Previously I did this. Well, this actually didn't work. Instantiate. So previously I did this. I evaluated the system attribute in the nixos folder here. And if we go to the default.nix, that's the file that would be called. We can see system is being defined as an option result. So here we can see eval is the module system evaluation. Via config, we can access the resulting option values for all of the options. And then we have this option, the system build top level. I believe this might even be documented. Let's go to search.nixos.org and search the options for top level. And it is. So yeah, it says this option contains the store path that typically represents a nixos system. And yeah, you can read this path in a custom deployment tool, for example. So yeah, that's kind of where we were going with this exploration here. And so in the nix eval case here, what we could then do, because in here we see it exposes the option, the config values of the options, but actually also the options here. This is a little bit weird. Let me look at the implementation here. Nixos equals, and then, oh, I see. So it merges the system.build attributes with the entire option evaluation as well. I probably wouldn't have designed it that way. That can lead to clashes in the namespaces. But in this case, because we want system.build.top level, we can access just the top level attribute in the result, and it should work. So let's do that. .top level. And yeah, that works. Well, it works, but we get the same errors before. That's just because we didn't specify any file systems or anything in here. For that, let me briefly do that. What I typically do, you might have seen that in the previous Nix Hour as well. It's just something like this, and then bootloader.grub.device equals node. This way we can at least evaluate the system and not get any, right, we still can't because of strict evaluation. So let's just evaluate out path. And that at last works. And for completeness, let's also get rid of this warning here. So stateVersion, I don't think we talked about this before, but let's briefly revisit stateVersion. It should be documented in here. So it's a bit longer read, but so there is certain things in your Nixos system that are stateful. So for example, I'm not sure if they mention it here, like databases. Oh yeah, here, PostgreSQL. And so PostgreSQL has like an internal database version scheme, and you can't automatically migrate from an old version to a new version in that scheme. And because it's something stateful on your system, you can't just change some configuration and make that work. So in order to not break every time the database scheme updates, there's the stateVersion. stateVersion is supposed to be tied to the version of the state on your system. So it is the same data type as a Nixos version, which unfortunately often leads to the idea that you need to update the stateVersion to change the to upgrade NixOS. But that doesn't do anything. It just might break things. So let's specify it in here. System.stateVersion. And now I'm gonna, well, let's pick the one it defaults to here. Defaulting to isn't super safe, but in this case, we don't have any system state yet. So this is what it would be. And so the safest way to use stateVersion is to just use the version that you installed Nixos with. If you want to change this, you should look at the release notes of NixOS. This should be in the NixOS manual and in the release notes. Very at the bottom. I'm not sure why this is an appendix. Oh, I guess, sure. So in here, there occasionally are entries with stateVersion. So in here, OpenSSL extension is built against an older version if the stateVersion is below something. So this means if you want to update to a more recent stateVersion, you should ensure that you did all the necessary migrations to make sure it doesn't break anything. But yeah, so this is our very minimal and not actually returning any useful system configuration. But I think with this, we can kind of continue a bit and see what happens with it. I will have to watch out a bit because I don't want to actually deploy to my system. And I don't have another machine ready right now. But so yeah, let's look at nixos-rebuild again. So we were at this Nix build. Oh, actually, I have it open here still. Yes. So we have the Nix build here. I feel like for completeness, well, let's also look at the flake here briefly. So flake here, it builds the flake etcher. That's nixos configuration.flake-etcher, which is, oh yeah, that's the system name I believe you specify on the CLI. Right, and then it does the same thing as above. It looks, so this would return the entire option evaluation. Config would give access to the evaluated option values. And then we have the system build top level option. So in the end afterwards, So flakes is just a convention to kind of structure Nix files and make that be more convenient. And so after this, there isn't much of a difference between flakes and non-flakes anymore. Past Nix evaluation, flakes and non-flakes are both derivations, which behave the same. And so this, in this case, well, this is switch and boot behavior, and then we go down here, copy to target. So nixos-rebuild has these options. If we look at it, nixos-rebuild, these options here, target host and build host. So this allows you to build the configuration on one machine, well, evaluate on one machine, the machine you're currently on, build the actual configuration on a separate machine, and then deploy it to another entirely separate machine. So you can involve 3 different machines in a single Nixos rebuild. But for this to work, certain things need to be done. So if you want to use a separate build host, you need to copy all the inputs needed for building to that host. And once that is built, you need to copy all the outputs from the build host to the target host so you can actually deploy it there. And in this case, copy to target. This is copy build to target host, so if we haven't already done it. So this is after building already, copying the results so it can be deployed. And then here, this is the second kind of main bit of Nixos rebuild, the nixenv profile switch. And so this is what actually changes your system or your system profile. So if we go in here, nix profiles, that's a bit big, we can see here the system profile with all of its generations and the latest one here. So we can see the system, the system one points currently at generation 213. We can also look at this using nixenv, I believe. We can say p. I'm gonna probably mess this up a little bit, but list generations. This doesn't work. Might have to be this. No, it might have to be sudo. Okay, yeah, that works. So we can list generations of here. We can also do other things. We could, well, set switch generation, yeah, switch. And that's also what Nixos rebuild does. Well, actually here, this is a rollback. I don't want to look at the rollback. I want to look at list generations. No, should be a normal set somewhere. Oh yeah, here. Okay, this is the main one. So we have the profile specified via p. The default profile would be the one in your user. So if we did just do nixenv-q, apparently I don't think I used Nix profile ever. Why is this incompatible? Oh, I'm not. In any case, this would be the normal profile it uses. In this case, I can't anymore, but you can change the profile with -p. And yes, so it sets a new system as the new generation. So that's just a path to the build result. And it essentially just sets the system symlink to the new one and makes sure that the old generations aren't removed or anything like that. Yeah, okay. Well, actually, there is one more main bit. So we first built the configuration and kind of moved it to the host that needed it. We essentially activated the profile, like pointed the profile to the latest version, but then we actually still need to switch the system to that new generation. This should be somewhere down here. Yes, here. So that's what the switch to configuration script is for. So we have the path to the config, that's the build result, and there's this script in here, which gets called and it does the actual switch. Now it has certain actions, this script. We can also call this ourselves. Yeah, let's do that. So the current system, in here we have the current, where was it? Switch to configuration. The path to config here, in a live system, this is equal to run current system. And also current system doesn't exist yet at this point, but the path to config is the next door path here to the system. But once it is deployed, you can access this via /run current system. And so when we do that, run current system bin, you can see here I called it in the past as well. This is the script. It also has a help page, and there's four main actions. Switching, so this is what actually does the switch, the entire one. Boot, that just changes the boot default, it doesn't switch the system. And test switches to it, but doesn't make it the boot default. Right, meaning when you reboot, it reboots into the old one. And these, I'll try activate as well. These mirror the nixos-rebuild options. So in here we also have boot, we have test, we have dry activate, and switch. So it's essentially these four options here. Yes, and we can also call this ourselves. This is totally safe. This gets called every time you do a rebuild, and if you call this, it just switches to the system you're currently already on. Well, I do need to call it with root. Oh. All right. So yeah, this is what actually prints these logs during activation. Yeah, so this is kind of what nixos-rebuild does. And afterwards, I don't think it does anything else. Yeah, this is really this last step of it. But this switch to configuration script goes kind of a bunch deeper as well. I mean, this is only kind of setting up the deployment. The switching script actually does the bulk of the work. And we can also look at this. This is also a script. Unfortunately, it's written in parallel, so might be a bit harder to read, although it's not that bad. Yeah, and so here we have things like current system, new system. This takes care of doing the actual like transition from the old to the new system. So this includes systemd units. When we can find it here, yes, get active units. We have unit is active. It's systemd parse unit. There's it's 1,000 lines long. Somewhere in here, there's a system control start, and this is really what a restart as well up here. So this is really what restarts your units when they changed on a rebuild. Also, I think this does the user, not sure if it does anything with users. Active users, it restarts user daemons, things like that. Generally, this script should do what requires knowledge of both the old and the new system. So, for example, I mean, right, systemd units. You need to know what units were previously active, and you need to activate some new ones. In here, there is, however, somewhere, there is an activate script. Let's try to find it. Let's try activate. No, it's not that. Oh, here. So it also calls out/activate. Out here is again just the system derivation, the one that run current system. And so this, when we go into that, let's go run current system activate. This is again a bash script. So we have chain from bash to Perl and back to bash. And so this is a script to activate things that that don't need knowledge of the old system. And so in here we have things you can essentially always run idempotently and run on its own. The script gets run both when you nixos-rebuild and when you boot up the system at all. And compared to the switch to configuration script, which only gets called when you rebuild. And yeah, so here we have things like it creates users. Oh, actually, this is something from Nixos, my deployment tool. This isn't the user creation, but mount creation. It creates some bin FNP things, some kind of special things that need some activation. Actually, users should be in here. Let me try to find that. User add user.
I think it's a Perl script that's called from the top of this one.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Okay, that goes back into Perl. So the chain continues. Yeah, but so something important about this script is that it should be as atomic as possible. And so in here, actually, one of the main bits is etc. Oh, and this also goes back into Perl. But so etc, the switch of etc happens as statically as possible. And so if we go into, I believe here, yeah, okay, Perl script again. Find, blah, blah, blah. I think somewhere there should be a, oh yeah, here, atomic symlink. Atomic symlink. Well, it's not, I think, yeah, it is. I believe it should be atomic. So it tries to do the entire switch in a single syscall so that there is no way to have an invalid state where only part of etc is activated. So like even if you happen to lose power during a switch, it should be mostly done in a single operation so you can't have an invalid state. This only applies to individual operations in the activation script though. Because this is only a single step in that script. And this one activates etc, and it does take great care to make it as atomic as possible. But other things in the activation script might not be as atomic. So, I mean, here, if we, let's go to the bottom. So like, it can really happen anywhere. Like somewhere in here, you could just lose power and then the move here might not happen, and that's like a temporary directory, and now it's not cleaned up anywhere. Now there might be some code to clean it up again when you run it again. But yeah, so this is kind of the main reason why you want to keep this activation script small and as atomic as possible, because right, less atomicity means more state and more invalid states and so on. The thing is, though, you can extend this yourself. And so doing this, right, this gives you power, but it also kind of a responsibility to make sure it's not, it works well. And we can do this. Let's look at this activation scripts, I believe. Yes. So there's an option for this in nixos-system.activationScripts. You can essentially just set a script to be run. There's also a way to say that some scripts should happen before others. Let's try something here. Let's go into our configuration. Let's do system.activationScripts. And let's just call something here, although I can't actually test this. Maybe I could just use my own system here, actually. Yeah, let's do that. Go into my system configuration. So this is my machine. I'm just going to insert something at the very top here. I'm going to remove this afterwards, but just for demonstration. Activation scripts. So actually, recommendation, don't do this. I'm not going to do anything super dangerous in here. But so in here, we could, for example, let's say echo the system has been switched from or to, and then run current system. Oh, wait, let's do real path of run current system. All right, so we expect this message to be printed when we build it. And let's try it out. So I'm gonna call my custom rebuild script here called RB. Does a bunch of things. Evaluating. I hope I didn't do any. Oh, of course it's. Oh, okay, we got an error that's relevant. I thought my configuration was broken. So we have the wrong type. That's fair. It's an attribute set of strings or submodules. So let me actually fix that. The activation scripts need to be named. So I'm going to call this activation custom. I'm going to hint a bit here to have Nix order this earlier with the A here because I want to break it actually. So let's try it. Keep this up here and rebuild down here.
I think you didn't save the file.
Oh. Yeah, I think I didn't. Yes. Thank you. And we could also, well, let's wait for a couple of seconds. All right, no more evaluation error, though a warning. Okay, builds it, and here we can actually also, no, we can't. Okay, yeah, that's fair enough. I was hoping we could see the activation script rebuilding, but I don't think that's actually needed. Okay, but it is rebuilt. Actually, with my deployment tool, it kind of sucks because you don't have the logs readily available. So I need to do like var nixos. Actually, let me do this. Needs fixing. Not gonna lie. Or system cat var lib system switcher. Here we go. And now we have a system that's to something to 7 and log. Okay, finally got the log. And we can see here, yeah, it was printed. The system has been switched to this one here. But now I wonder, is this actually correct? Let me check. So it was YH9. Let's look at the run current system. That's what should be the path for this. Actually, let me run. Current system, a bit hard to read, but actually it's wrong. So it starts with, let me make this a bit bigger. or I guess I'm going to do real path run current system or read link. Yes. So read link, it's a different system. And so here it's NF3, here it's YH9. And so the problem here is that this happened too early. The rebuilds, the activation script, if we look at that, so run activate, so we looked at the current system symlink here. So this is our line here, has been inserted into the script. But when does this current system actually get switched? Let's grab for it here. And we can see down here, ln run current system. So it gets switched here on line 462, which is too late. And in fact, it might be too late entirely. Can we even, well, let's find out. So I'm going to go into the source here. I believe it's in top level.nix. activationScripts. Well, it should be somewhere in here. System builder, we have. Oh, it's not here. activationScript. Okay, it's here, yeah. Oh yeah, and okay, we actually can't change it at all. If we look at the implementation here, so this is the definition of the entire activation script. Here we have some prefix, which does some basic things like it sets the, well, actually, yeah, this will be relevant for later, but so it sets some various things. Then it does the the scripts themselves. This is a bit complicated how it looks, but these are all the custom scripts the user can set. And only afterwards, it actually does this run current system switch here. So we can't actually...
You could add a trap for exit that would do this.
That would work. Yeah, although I wonder...
It's just a bash script, so...
Yeah. We could try that. Let me do here. So it would be something like trap exit or trap this and then exit.
I think it should be all capital letters.
I believe actually anything works. I've also used lowercase in the past. Well, let's try it just to show it. So trap this, actually, let me keep it. Oh. Okay, yeah, let's try this. I need to leave in like a couple minutes, so let me do this as a final thing here. Evaluating. Oh, and actually, before I forget, actually in here, if we look at activation scripts in the Nixos modules folder in Nixos, we can find how a lot of them are defined. And so, for example, I'll next to my user, we have a user groups, this one. Activation scripts. And so this is, actually, this is kind of a weird one. Oh, this is a good one. Well, actually not great. It doesn't do anything. But in any case, you can use these, I believe it's lib.string after, to influence the ordering of these activation scripts. So there's another activation script that's titled users. If you specify string after, like this, it will make sure to order this groups one after the users one. And so this is a kind of very simple way to have some ordering. Yes. So if you have some dependency in the activation script, for example, if you need users to be set up first before you can run your own activation script, you might need this. All right, and in here, finish deploying. Let me do this weird dance again to get the logs, cat, and then the next one. And switch to JVN. Let's do a read link on this. And that works now. Actually, why did it print it there? I'm not sure about that. Yeah, actually, that's kind of weird. In any case, I think let's end it for today. I guess we didn't really get into the deployment system, like how to write your own deployment system very much. But this is kind of just an overview of the activation of a Nixos system, from nixos-rebuild down to the activation script. All right, hope that helps, and see you again next time.